Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Weekly Hope. I'm Kirsten Hagland. It's great to have you here. And if you joined us before, you recognize the unofficial co-host of this show, Elsa, who wishes you all a very happy hello and hope that you're having a good week as well. We are joining you here from Zurich today. And what's so cool about this show is that every week we get people that sign in and watch from all over the world. So part of what we love in and throughout the interview and throughout the show is we love to hear from you and we love to hear where you're from. So if you're watching us, join in, type your name in the comments, say hello, let us know where you're signing in from. We always just love to see this community of people that sign in every week to watch episodes of Weekly Hope. So we love to hear from you. Say hello, let us know. Also what's on your mind, because the great thing about these shows is that we welcome every week guests from different treatment centers, advocates, people with their own recovery stories, leaders of nonprofits, authors, just a wide variety of different guests. And the cool thing is that especially with these expert clinicians that we get on that have such a wide range of experience in treating eating disorders and mental health issues, is we get a chance to not only discuss interesting topics with them and get their professional wisdom and insight, but also it provides you the opportunity to ask your questions and share what's on your heart and on your mind. And if you know me, and I've shared parts of my own recovery journey here on the show before, I often wish that when I was struggling with an eating disorder, when I was going through the recovery process, that I had something like this where I could hear and be educated about eating disorders more, to be able to ask clinicians questions, to be able to share what was on my mind and heart. I wish I had that opportunity. So I just want to encourage you to take advantage of it. And also what's really cool is we have a great community online here at Eating Disorder Hope. So not only do we have these Weekly Hope episodes, but if you visit our website, we have literally thousands of articles. So if something in this conversation piques your interest today, makes you want to know more, makes you think, hey, this is something that I need to seek out more information about. Maybe I might be struggling, maybe a family member or a friend that I have might be struggling, and I want to find out more. You can always go to our website at eatingdisorderhope.com and find just thousands of articles written by expert clinicians, as well as blogs from people who have made it through the recovery process. So anything and everything you want, you can find on our website. And the cool thing is we have lots of great articles on there written by our friends at the Meadows Ranch. And that is our guest today. She is the clinical director at the Meadows Ranch. So we are super, super excited to welcome her and to dive into a really great discussion on people pleasing and perfectionism. It's something that has come up in the comments in this show before, and I know is something that, I've personally struggled with. I know lots of people out there struggle with as the root of the eating disorder, but then also just it drives so much of our cultural conversation in ways that are subtle and nuanced, in ways that we don't even necessarily see or know about. And so I wanted to bring on a clinician to talk about this, to kind of get to the root of it, and to figure out some strategies for how we can really start to fight back against the beast and the slave master that really is perfectionism, and find a way to freedom. So without any further ado, I'm going to welcome Erica Trocino. And I just realized I don't know if that's the right way to pronounce your last name. Is it?
Trissino.
Trissino. Okay, wonderful. So Erica Trissino is joining us. She is, as I mentioned, the clinical director at the Meadows Ranch, which is in Arizona. And I'm just going to read a little bit more of her bio because she has such a wide range of experience. She's a licensed professional counselor and a supervisor in the state of Arizona. She's also a certified eating disorder specialist, a certified alcohol and drug abuse counselor, and is EDMR trained. She was the lead therapist at Rosewood Centers for Eating Disorders before her transition to the Meadows Ranch. And she also started her career, which is interesting, working at a sober living facility, and was a board member on the Arizona Board of Certified Addiction Counselors, and worked as a trauma counselor for sex-trafficked adolescent females. So really, really amazing wealth of experience there, and we are very honored to have her on the show. So welcome, Erica.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you are joining us from Arizona today, right?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. So it's morning for you, evening for us over here. And just want to remind you, I know we just got some new viewers. Hello and welcome. And just want to say at any point you've got a question for Erica or you want to chime in, feel free to do so. And also, say hello, tell us your name, and let us know where you're signing in from. We'd love to hear from you. So, Erica, first off, tell us just a little bit about your job and the work you do at the Meadows Ranch.
Yeah, so I oversee the clinical department, making sure that the therapists are in tune with what their clients' needs are. So we do a lot of supervision and staffing to make sure that their program is the right fit for them and they're getting those therapeutic needs met. We also do program development. So I'm always looking for new modalities or resources to bring into our program to make sure that we're continuing to be at the cutting edge. And again, it's just that supervision piece. So getting my staff to all pursue that certified eating disorder specialist track. We feel like that's really important in a facility that specializes in eating disorders and trauma. We feel like that's the best direction to go. So I'm really excited that my team is heading in that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. And actually, yeah, that's a really great point to talk about too. The fact that the Meadows Ranch is not just eating disorders. Can you tell us just a little bit about the scope of treatment that's offered there?
Absolutely. So primary diagnosis will be eating disorder. However, co-occurring disorders come with that. Individuals that have experienced traumatic events come in with that. So we offer, EMDR, we offer our brain center, which is really awesome neurofeedback. We've got equine therapy, art. So we just have a variety of options for everyone's needs and what that looks like.
Yeah. Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you so, so much. And we know you have a very busy schedule doing all that leadership that you do. So we're also just really, really thankful that you're here. So let's dive into this topic. First of all, I would love for you to describe in your view, I was looking up kind of like the clinical definition earlier today of what exactly perfectionism is, because I feel like I know in my core what it is, but how would you describe it?
The way that I see it presenting so often is just this compulsion to continue to raise the bar and push themselves beyond limits that aren't realistic for people to sustain in the long term. And it can show up in a variety of ways. So it could be eating, it could be work, it could be just how they interact with others. And so it's just this real drive to be perceived a certain way that isn't necessarily reality.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit later about exactly how damaging actually perfectionism is, and if that was really the goal, how it takes you even further away from that,
Yeah.
ironically. How prevalent, I just think, obviously, I'm not a counselor or a professional psychologist, but I just think with all of the knowledge that you have and the people that you treat every day, it must just drive you nuts that we live in a culture that just seems so obsessed with perfectionism. How prevalent, how do you walk around in the world today and not like, you're like, you all have eating disorders, you all have anxiety issues. How prevalent is this in society today?
It's pretty prevalent. And I really believe that social media has a huge influence on that. And that isn't just for kids. I mean, it affects all ages. There's just so much focus on what we're putting out there to the world, and we're not necessarily showing what that actually looks like in real life. And so a lot of distortion comes just from what we're seeing, and we kind of take it as face value. And that's the danger that we're seeing, especially with the younger ones, is this idea that, well, if I see it, it must be true. And there isn't a lot of challenging in what they're seeing. So we definitely are seeing that on the rise. And we hope that over time, this idea that perfectionism means that you're better than, or the standard or status with other people will hopefully diminish in time, because it only creates more and more problems, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. Why do you think, you see more celebrities tending to post like no makeup selfies and, trying to push this envelope of being more authentic and all of that. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem to be working.
It's definitely a step in the right direction. It's encouraging to see for, again, all ages. So, Demi Lovato's kind of showing the real side of where she's at. We've got moms that have postpartum and kind of what their bodies actually look like instead of the celebrities that, bounce right back. So it's helpful, but again, it needs to be more at, a level that the rest of us can relate to. Because I think in the back of our minds, we know that the celebrities don't live this perfect life. But at the same time, our everyday interactions, we're not always seeing that other side of other people either. And we're maybe not as connected authentically as we could be, because people are trying to have this perception that I got it all together.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say, Kelly says, hi from Phoenix.
Oh,
Hi,
hi, Mom.
Kelly. Oh, I love it. It's your mom. Amazing. My mom usually watches sometimes too, and sometimes she'll pop in and say hello. I love that. Moms supporting their girls.
Yes.
And then we have Dr. Anais Munoz Kelly. It's nice to see you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly. And I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but maybe you can give me a phonetic in the comments. So awesome. So great to have you guys here. All right, we've got another comment and great question from Jan. And I guess I'll just get this in right now because we want to be able to answer these. All right, so I'm just reading here. All right, so Jan just wrote in the comments. Here, hold on, just a second, Jan. Let me just see if I can bring this up on screen. So I went to the Meadows late last year and relapsed soon after coming home, sadly. Then I started binging badly and restricting as well. I'm currently wanting lasting recovery, but due to cost in college, I can't go to residential, which is obviously a huge issue for a ton of people. Would you suggest intuitive eating and letting my body settle at its natural weight, or should I go back to my meal plan that I had while I was at the Meadows Ranch? And also, how do I not compare what I'm eating with others? And how do I not worry about what they think of what I do or do not eat? Which is a great question. Wait, can I just respond to Nicole real fast before you do, Erica?
Yeah.
So first of all, Dan, I want to say thank you for your bravery in talking about this and the openness and honesty, because so many people hide when they relapse or when they're struggling again, because they feel that pressure that when they come home, they have to be perfectly recovered. So first of all, I just want to say bravo you for being honest. But when I was in my recovery journey too, I kind of felt that pressure a lot. Like, oh, I have to perform eating now for other people because I have to make sure that they think that I'm eating enough. But then, well, gosh, I have to make sure I'm intuitively eating. And if I don't want to clear my plate, then that doesn't mean that I'm still sick and that other people are going to think I'm still sick if I was intuitively eating and I feel good and satisfied and I don't need to, finish absolutely every single piece. So I think the most important thing to remember that was really helpful for me was just that I'm recovering for me and no one else. And no one else went through the treatment process that I do. And I just really have to trust my gut and trust all those skills that I worked on in recovery to know that it doesn't matter what the heck they think. Like, I'm recovered for me and me alone. And that's the only voice, the healthy voice, that should matter. But Erica, what are your thoughts on that?
About the intuitive eating, that's something that we would recommend maybe later on in the treatment process, because initially we want that meal plan to be something that you can lean on and it's consistent, it's factual. So I would suggest, working with a dietitian who can reassess what your needs are at this time. If you were at the ranch a time ago, that could be where your body was at a different place. So we are going to recommend that you see a dietitian, do a new assessment, get an updated meal plan and stay with that. We typically recommend upon discharge to stick with that meal plan for about a year. And once you start getting that confidence and having those hunger fullness cues, you can start to deviate in working with that dietitian about more of the intuitive eating process. And it's hard when you're on a meal plan and it feels gigantic compared to your peers. Naturally, you're going to compare and question why it is the way it is, and having that trust in your dietitian that they know what your body needs and they're looking at how your body responds.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. Trust of your treatment team is so, so key and important. Thanks for answering that. Oh, and Melanie, Mrs. Medawar. Hi, Melanie. Hi. She says, I still have to call you Mrs. Medawar because she was my teacher. Teachers supporting your students. Absolutely. Hi. Thanks so much for watching. All right. So how does perfectionism specifically drive eating disorders? And we talked about it a little bit from the nutrition piece, but it does seem to be a common root, and not just for anorexia, but bulimia as well. What is it, and how does it interplay with the drive and the root of the eating disorder?
So here at the ranch, we talk a lot about shame. Unfortunately, shame it's an emotion, and it's not a bad emotion, but we tend to not like how it feels. We don't like to feel not good enough. And so we start to look at what are the messages that are giving you that impression, because that's going to be a driving force for the behaviors that we're seeing on the outside. So again, eating disorders, they tend to be pretty rigid in the sense of having rules and rituals, and perfectionism fits really nicely with that. It's very black and white. You either do this or you do that. And if you don't do this, this is what that means about you. And so when that worth and value gets attached to the behaviors, that's where we get concerned, because if they have a bad day, all of a sudden they're worthless or they're horrible. Or if they have a good day in the disorder, they're feeling more confident and I'm not that sick. So it's a scary place to be when those two merge, because there is such rigidity and it's very black and white. So we work a lot with helping women find the gray area and not having this all or nothing mentality that can really set them up for self-sabotage as well. That if they're doing well, or if they make one mistake, then that's it. When really we're trying to encourage them to get back on it, keep going. One mistake is not the end, and just giving them that encouragement to be flexible with what comes up.
Yeah. And I remember with my therapist that we worked on kind of plucking up the seeds of perfectionism in other areas, like things with my schoolwork, or, the time I got up in the morning, or, or my exercise, or my commitment to ballet. I was highly perfectionistic in ballet. Does it help working on perfectionism in other areas as well as the rituals related to food? Because it seems like you can't just cherry pick where you want to uproot the perfectionism.
Unfortunately, yeah, we have to hit it in different directions. And it usually starts with food initially here, because that's the first element of control that they're losing. And so we want to help them understand how to make decisions, even if they feel a certain way about what's going on. But like you said, the schoolwork, we see a lot. There is a lot, but it's whatever they can control. And so they're going to put their heart and soul into trying to control that very aspect. It could be school or a sport. So that's definitely something that we have to hit throughout their treatment course, and looking at where are they ready to start addressing. Because some of them, this idea of not being perfect scares them. Well, what if I'm not good at this anymore? As if goals don't matter anymore. We try and get them shifting into more of a goal-oriented place rather than this perfectionistic, I have to do it. That sounds more like a compulsion.
Yeah. And that's such a great point. And I mean, what is so interesting too is I realized, and I think a lot of people do as well, that perfectionism also, obviously perfection is not possible. Like it's not possible. Why do we continue to cling to this? And even as a society, because as soon as you step back, even the messages that, we try to send out so often about the importance of self-compassion and forgiveness, and learning to accept where you are and be content and not always be striving. Society hates that message, right? If you're content, you're lazy, you're not motivated, you're doomed to failure, all those things. Why do we continue to believe in something, in like almost a God in some sense, that we're always doomed to failure? What is it about the pull that's so strong?
It just feels like it's still on that pedestal and that people still think it's attainable. I don't know if it's because of technology or different resources that we have now, but it is out there. And we have so much exposure to things that aren't actually real. Like online with images being modified and we don't know it. Or just in our everyday, we only share certain pieces that make us look good instead of talking about the struggles that we might actually be having, because there's still this idea of if you're struggling or you need help, you're weak. Still a lot of really negative attachments to anything less than perfect.
Yeah. And just to back up that point, I would say probably a really good thing to do is go through, because it's the second time you've mentioned social media, and it's so important that people go through and unfollow accounts or kind of do a culling of their social media to make sure that they're hearing the healthiest messages. So perfectionism often goes hand in hand with people pleasing. And maybe if people can't necessarily relate to the perfectionism element, because maybe that isn't necessarily a driver for them, I think especially even the recovery process a lot can be in an effort to please or to make happy the people around us. And I was connecting that too to like self-worth, people getting a lot of their self-worth from making the people around them happy. Is that the connection? And how do you guys help people to develop a sense of self-worth outside of making other people happy?
Yeah, and that one is scary for a lot of people because they may have experienced rejection or some of that negativity that comes from having a different opinion or not wanting to do something for someone else. So we really start to talk about from the beginning, are you the person that you want to be? Because people pleasers tend to be chameleons with the people that they're around. So they'll kind of blend or adapt so that they make sure that they're on the same page, they're being liked, and they're getting that validation. So when we take away that people pleasing element, they're left with this identity that they're not really sure who they are because they've been maybe living for others. And so we start to look at their values, what's important to them, what motivates you to get up in the morning, what, again, future oriented of where do you want to be, and how does this all fit for you right now. So looking at the values, looking at the identity, and then really starting to weave in, how do you find your voice? Something as simple as saying no is extremely difficult for someone that's afraid of that rejection. So we're practicing these assertiveness skills. How do you set boundaries of, no, I'm not able to do that today. Not feeling like you have to explain yourself. It's a really tough process. And it's something that they start here and they practice, and then they go home, and that's where the real work starts to begin, when they're back in that dynamic or with certain people that maybe they aren't as strong because they want to have a connection, and they don't want to ruin that, but trying to figure out, well, where do I stand? Does this fit with my values? Am I going to be resentful that I said yes later when I really wanted to say no? So we try and teach them to forward think also about that.
Yeah, it's so good. How do you help someone find out what their values truly are? Because I know what friends of mine in recovery have done. I know what I have done. But that can be really, really challenging if your values for years have been eating disorders values and what you think you need to do in order to get love from other people.
Yeah.
How does that process even start?
Well, we first start to look at what does the eating disorder offer to you that actually could fit into some alignment with their values. I mean, there is some manipulation with the eating disorder as well, like success or achievement. The eating disorder is going to see that as, well, I can offer that to you if you just do these things. And so when we break apart what the eating disorder values versus what the individual, which goes back to, how did you grow up? What's important? Who's important? Where do you spend your time? That's an important one too, because you can have all these values, but if your time is spent in the disorder, you're missing out on those other pieces. And so once we can separate the two and look at, well, these were my values maybe before the disorder, or things have evolved throughout, then we start to look at the decisions that you're making. Are they from a values place? Does that feel congruent for you, or are you at conflict again with yourself? So again, it's kind of weeding out what's important to you versus maybe that wasn't your value in the first place, but you took that on and it benefited you in some way.
That's so good. I love how you mentioned how the eating disorder says it will provide some of those things for you, which actually can be key to finding out what your true values are. But you're exposed to say, no, the eating disorder has actually never provided those things for me.
Right.
Like when we look at it square in the face and we look at the reality, we say, no, it never provided those things.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say we've got a couple people saying hi. Jeff Long popped in and said hello. Hi, Jeff. Kathy says hi from Los Angeles. Daniel says Daniel and John here. Hey, guys. It's great to see you. And then we've got a great comment from Cynthia, which I'm going to get to, Cynthia, in just a second. So hang tight. I would love for you to talk too about the fact that perfectionism and people pleasing never gives you what you want. It actually takes you further away. It's something that was really motivating for me when I realized, okay, there are some perfectionistic tendencies or things that can be good drivers, good motivators toward those things that I want, success, or to be in a place of comfort and safety, security. Obviously, every person wants that. Yeah. That's not a wrong thing. But it was like a light bulb went off in my head when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm doing something that's actually taking me in the exact opposite direction of those things. Mm-hmm. You just cement that truth for us, and the work that you do with girls every day, that these things do not work.
It may take some time. Initially they come in and they want to protect that. This has been working for me. And unfortunately, the thoughts and the lies over time have probably convinced them that that's true. And then as time unfolds here in treatment, when they're kind of away from those sources, they can start to see, oh yeah, that doesn't really benefit me, or I'm actually super stressed about this now and I didn't realize it before because I was just go, go, go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What we've talked a little bit about the transition back home after leaving a residential facility, or even, if someone's an outpatient or a PHP program. What are some tips or advice that you can give people who are really working hard on combating these lies, and not believing in the perfectionism and the people pleasing anymore? What advice can you give people to deal with challenging individuals
Mhm.
when they go home who don't
It's
necessarily?
inevitable.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course.
Well, so we lay some of that groundwork here by doing the assertiveness training and getting them familiar with boundaries, whether it's within themselves and not letting their brain beat them up with all these negative thoughts, or what they allow other people to say or talk to them about. So giving them that foundation before they go home so that they have just a little bit more comfort taking that step and saying, whoever the person is, hey, I'm not on board with that, or I can't do that today, so that it's not waiting until they're in that environment to start practicing those skills. Because at that point they're back in the environment, and we're very worried about that. So at least initially, yeah, it's the boundaries, it's the affirmations. We do a lot of affirmation work here and developing mantras, because we know that the brain will listen. If you tell that brain enough times any kind of thought, it will start to believe it, just like they did with the eating disorder lies. And so here we really emphasize the affirmations and the mantras, whether it's meal times, snack times, or when they're just by themselves. Again, because their brain is listening, we want them to feed that information of, I have permission to set boundaries, or it's okay for me to say no. Just again, giving them that nudge and that reminder of the things that they learned here.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I don't have a mantra per se, but I pray and I meditate.
Mhm.
And so that to me is my way of, I guess, talking to myself.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, do you have a mantra? And if you do, what is it? If not, it's all good. I'm curious to always hear others.
Mine is always more kind of what I need in that moment. So if I'm stressed, I might remind myself that I'm capable or I'm calm. If I have something coming up like today, with this Facebook Live, something as simple as, I'm calm, and I already know this material, so I can just speak freely and I don't have to worry. So mine is just going to be more of what I need in that moment. And that's probably coming from our brain center. I mean, we all use it here too. And we know that it calms down that nervous system. So just finding what I need in that moment is usually what I go to.
Yeah, it's so good. So how can we challenge on a more like cultural, broader level? How can we challenge the cultural myth that perfectionism is possible?
Well, I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier, where it's starting more at a higher level with the celebrities and the people that have a ton of exposure being more human and authentic in their daily lives. And so if that could continue to translate down to the rest of us here, where, whether it's our coworkers or our friends, our families being more vulnerable with what's going on with us, whether it's a struggle or something going really well, because sometimes people don't want to talk about that either. We just want to continue to be more authentic. And we know that as humans, we make mistakes, and that's inevitable. So, kind of owning them and what do we do with that can be really important too, to see that if I'm making a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Like, I can laugh about it, or I can move on from it, or maybe I just need time. But to not feel like you have to hold it and hide it, because that again feeds into that shame. I mean, shame
Mm,
thrives on the secrets and the hiding. So we want to reduce that shame by being more open and honest about what's going on.
absolutely. I gotta put that in here in the notes so that I can put it up on the screen. Openness. Oh, you said something so brilliant, and I wanted to quote it, and I didn't get it fast enough. So maybe maybe I'll remember it. See, I had a brain fart, so that was my authentic moment. Um, no, I think authenticity is so important, and I think it's a good challenge for us to not just say like, "Oh, we wish that celebrities would be more authentic," or "Yeah, people should do that more." But I think it's a good also reflection to say, "Okay, am I being my most authentic self?" Not meaning that you have to overshare TMI everything
Right.
on Facebook, right? I mean.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about our clinical team, is that's where we're coming from. I mean, these people, these women are coming in and bearing their souls, and typically not in the greatest place in their lives. And so to talk to a therapist that might present as I got it all together isn't going to be a good fit. And so our team is really big on just being themselves, being open about the fact that I've had struggles too, and it's okay. But yeah, again, authenticity does not mean this full disclosure by any means. we don't want people to feel overexposed, but it's just being real in the moment that, you know what, today wasn't a good day, or I'm really struggling today. That can be enough. That can be huge for someone that
Yeah.
to just admit that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kathy says, it feels like my daughter was more comfortable being vulnerable in treatment with others practicing the same. It seems like now out of treatment that vulnerability is becoming very scary again. What words of advice would you have for Kathy?
Well, it's a very real reality. People come into treatment. There's people that understand them and that don't really have to explain where they've been. So there is a level of vulnerability that comes through in treatment. So finding a group or some kind of support system at home that could replicate what was found here in treatment would be something to definitely look into. If there was benefit in treatment where there's that safety and containment to share those things, finding that again on the outside would be extremely beneficial.
Yeah, great advice. This is actually a really, really cool story from Cynthia that I just want to put up here. She says, hi, Cynthia's writing in from Calgary in Canada. My daughter is my hero, whose story is typical, but she's anything from typical. She graduates with distinction from university in chemical engineering. Perfectionism is such a common thread. She spoke to a group of scholars last night and read it to me before she headed out. Instead of bragging about her achievements, she spoke about her struggles. I wish that I could share her inspirational speech, but suffice to note that it was about how being a part of a support group, both professional and with wonderful friends, and lucky to have had therapists keep her going as well, was all part of her recovery. So, so cool.
Yeah.
If that was my daughter, she would be my hero too. I don't have kids, but that's an incredible story, Cynthia. You should be incredibly proud and tell your daughter we think she's awesome.
Yeah.
For sure. We've only got a couple minutes left here with Erica, so I just want to encourage you, if you have just joined us in the last 10 minutes or so, to encourage you to ask those questions and get those in before we have to sign off here. And of course, always just feel free to pop in, say hello, and tell us your name and where you're signing in from. So Erica, kind of last question here. I always ask our guests if there's someone who's watching here who's really in a bit dark place in the recovery process and feeling kind of hopeless, which can absolutely happen, or maybe they are on that last third of the recovery journey and they just need that motivation push to kind of keep going. How would you encourage them?
Well, for the individual that might be in that dark place, just reminding them that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to go find a place that can take care of you until you're ready to take care of yourself. So you never have to be sick enough to come into treatment. Unfortunately, that's something that we hear a lot is, well, I waited until I was sick enough. You can come in at any time. So we do encourage people to come as soon as they have that inclination that things are getting bad. We do encourage that. And then for those that are along the journey, really befriending the mistakes that happen along the way. Slips are inevitable in the recovery process. And so really looking at what is it trying to teach you and how do I take that with me down the road, because this might pop up again, and how can I be more successful the next time around? That to us is a game changer, because if we don't look at the mistakes, we're going to keep making them. We're going to keep feeling bad about the decisions that we've made. And so learning to make friends with the mistakes can be really helpful, can be quite the teacher.
I love that. Learn to make friends with the mistakes.
Yeah.
So good. Erica, thank you so much. This has been so great. And I could listen to you talk for another hour, but unfortunately we have to let you go. So thank you again. And thank you for the great work that you do and the community that you serve, and all of you there at the Meadows Ranch. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. So that's our show for today, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for your great comments and questions. I just want to sign off, say goodbye to all of you, and also just share, as I read Cynthia's story of her daughter, it just reminded me, and I just wanted to share with you personally that some of you may know that in what feels like a former life, 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago now, I was actually Miss America in 2008. And to make a long story very short, I was not a pageant girl in my life, and I was very surprised when that actually happened, that I actually won, and had a lot of mixed feelings about then winning and being on the road and all of this and the beauty ideal. But I made my platform Eating Disorders because I wanted to talk about body image and raise awareness of these issues and help people to get care and share my recovery journey. And that was a really, really uplifting part of that opportunity. But I share that with you because I was in a position where like that's who everyone thinks, oh, a Miss whoever or a celebrity or a model or whatever, they must have everything together and their life must be perfect and they must be perfect to have achieved this goal. And I, every day on the road, just felt like I am so not perfect. I am 19 years old. I know nothing about the world. I'm just here. um, and I just made it my mission to just be as vulnerable and authentic with people as possible. Obviously, I shared my story with an eating disorder and just how broken and completely broken I was. I shared how inadequate I felt as Miss America often. It was like my therapy too. It was so nice to get that off my chest in front of people. And I will tell you that I know that that made a difference so much more than me just going in there and being perfect or being like confident or looking beautiful all the time or just telling people like you can achieve your dreams, you know, to really be radically vulnerable with people. I was so shocked at how they came up to me and just said like, thank you for just being a real human being. And it impressed upon me so much the need for just authenticity and vulnerability. And so I just want to encourage you. I've seen that difference. And I just want to encourage you that wherever you are and whatever you're facing in life, you know, and maybe life is going great and maybe it's not, but I just want you to know that your vulnerability and your authenticity will make more of a difference for others than you can ever possibly imagine. And also it will help you. I think sometimes we think if we admit our failures or we admit our uncertainty, or we say, I don't know, that would be perceived as weak. But actually to be able to do that is one of the highest forms of strength that you can possibly have as a human being, because none of us have it all together. And I think I have got a favorite quote from this New York Times article about a woman who wrote about 40 things she learned by the time she was 40. And one of them was, there are no grown-ups. We're all winging it. Some people are just winging it more confidently than others. And I think it's a wonderful thing to remember. And just know that wherever you are on this process and wherever you may be in your life, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. And that tomorrow's a new day. And acceptance, self-compassion is so key. And as Erica said, very, very good idea to learn to make friends with your mistakes. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much again for watching. We will see you. Let's see. Do we got another one next week? Let me just look on my calendar here. Nope, we're off next week, April 3rd. So enjoy your Wednesday, and we will see you back here on April 10th for another episode of Weekly Hope. This video is going to be pinned to the top of our Facebook page for the next 2 weeks, and then will also be loaded onto our YouTube channel. So if this is something you can say, I just got to share that with a friend of mine, it would be a really great message for him or her. You can check out our social as well as our YouTube channel and share this link with them. So, all right, wherever you are in the world, have a beautiful, blessed day or evening, and we'll see you back on April 10th for another episode of Weekly Hope. All right, ciao, everyone.